Hi, it's already been a year since Dutton's ban on foreigners buying property was implemented. So how much have Australian property prices actually dropped? Aren't you curious about how much impact foreign investment really has on Australian real estate? You'll know after watching this video. Let me give you the conclusion first. It's almost zero. Because the past year has proven that Australian property prices are almost unrelated to foreign investment. If you have a different opinion, or if you disagree with my view, you can keep listening. Because everything I'm about to say is based entirely on data, with no personal opinions involved. Around this time last year, the Chinese community was flooded with news about Dutton planning to ban overseas buyers. To put it plainly, a lot of people were asking, will our property prices fall now that there are no foreigners or overseas Chinese to take over? At the time, I said this was all about politics, a political show for votes, specifically designed to exploit ordinary people's anxieties. Every year, there are these kinds of misleading policies, right? And if you set aside the policies, all the media do is ignore the data and focus on creating anxiety. Now, a year has passed and the data is out. Let's check the numbers. I think those who hesitated last year because of this policy and didn't buy in really lost out big time. If you didn't even consider buying a house last year and hadn't even heard about this, then let this serve as a lesson for you. Whenever a new policy or negative news comes out, don't just listen to one side of the story on Xiaohongshu, Douyin, or any short video platform, or even on YouTube. You should use AI to search online and verify the information for yourself. On April 1st last year, the ban officially took effect, which means that foreigners and temporary residents were prohibited from purchasing second-hand homes for a period of 2 years. Sounds pretty scary, doesn't it? Basically, if you don't have PR, you can't buy any second-hand homes. But at the time, I said this channel wasn't really used by many people anyway. Why is that? Because the data at the time already proved this point. In the previous fiscal year, second-hand homes purchased by foreigners in Australia accounted for only 34% of all foreign home purchases. In other words, most foreigners were actually misled into buying apartments or off-the-plan properties, but a small number did buy second-hand homes. And in absolute terms, the total was less than 2,000 units, which you have to spread across all the cities in Australia. In other words, if you consider this as the numerator, then the denominator is the hundreds of thousands of property transactions across Australia each year. It doesn't even make up 1,000th of that total. It's not even a drop in the ocean. Now, let's talk about housing prices. After the ban took effect, let's look at the results. How did national housing prices in Australia move? Don't forget, this was still during an interest rate hike cycle. So let's look at some data from a few relatively official sources. As of December 2025, the annual growth rate of national housing prices was 8.8%, which is quite auspicious, setting a new historical record, reaching a new high of 880,000 Australian dollars. And notice, this isn't just a fluke. The increase is even greater than the 4.9% growth during the interest rate cut cycle in 2024. Now, some people might ask, what about Melbourne? Melbourne is indeed an exception. Some areas have seen a correction. Since I'm in Melbourne, I know that if you're looking to buy a house in the inner east or near east expensive areas, you might not need to rush, as prices there are still likely to fall. The fundamental problem in Melbourne is oversupply, coupled with weak local demand. Whether or not foreigners are buying second-hand homes is really a separate issue. The real driving force has never been foreigners. For example, if you look at NABI Bank's survey from start to finish, foreigners account for about 5% of the Australian property market, and most of that